Welcome back to episode 2 of Untangling Braid. Um, in this episode, we are going to untangle all the threads, the art, the writing, the game mechanics, the level design. We're going to see how they all support the core ideas of this game in World 2, the first world, time and forgiveness. Here we are. So the first thing to notice is that we are in the clouds, right? This is a bizarre level. We were just in Tim's house. Ordinary house. I talked in the last episode about how it's all kind of the whole literal story of Braid, just like how The Witness has multiple layers of story. There's that wacky story about it being a VR experiment and stuff, but then there's also the story of like the people who came to the island and settled it and stuff. Braid has multiple levels of story where the most literal level is a game developed by Jonathan Blow in the style of Italo Calvino novels or something. Then there's the level of Tim, the person in the real world New York, coming home and having these thought experiments in the style of like Feynman and Einstein about what if the world worked differently. And then there's the kind of fantasy story with all these powerful metaphors about the princess and all the kind of video gamey imagery of the pipes and the jumping on stuff and the green fields and all that. But as a barrier between the fantasy world of the thought experiment and the real world of Tim's house, there's this world, the clouds. It's like a totally abstract, it's mental space, right? Tim's head is literally in the clouds right now. It's this foggy, like when people say I haven't got the foggiest idea, it's like a ever-shifting space of just kind of time and gaseous winds and things. That's the clouds. So this world is all about time and forgiveness. It's about being able to rewind time. What if you could take back something that happened, undo a mistake, and everything could be forgiven and put back just the way it was. So we're going to read the story in these little books here, and then we're going to talk about it. Tim is off on a search to rescue the princess. She has been snatched by a horrible and evil monster. This happened because Tim made a mistake. Not just one. He made many mistakes during the time they spent together, all those years ago. Memories of their relationship have become muddled, replaced wholesale, but one remains clear, the princess turning sharply away, her braid lashing at him with contempt. He knows she tried to be forgiving, but who can just shrug away a guilty lie, a stab in the back? Such a mistake will change a relationship irreversibly, even if we have learned from the mistake and would never repeat it. The princess's eyes grew narrower. She became more distant. Our world, with its rules of causality, has trained us to be miserly with forgiveness. By forgiving too readily, we can be badly hurt. But if we've learned from a mistake and become better for it, shouldn't we be rewarded for the learning, rather than punished for the mistake? What if our world worked differently? Suppose we could tell her, I didn't mean what I just said, and she would say, it's okay, I understand. And she would not turn away, and life would really proceed as though we had never said that thing. We could remove the damage, but still be wiser for the experience. Tim and the princess lounge in the castle garden, laughing together, giving names to the colorful birds. Their mistakes are hidden from each other, tucked away between the folds of time. Safe. So, this world, World 2, Time and Forgiveness, is the simplest of all the worlds that we're going to encounter. It's the it's the introduction, the tutorial. It has a kind of nostalgic feeling. It's a counterpoint to everything that'll come later. But there's already obviously a lot going on in this infamously cryptic text that people in Braid are famous for just blitzing past and not reading all this pretentious gibberish, as it was infamously known in back in 2008. But we're going to try and break it down. So, first bit, Tim is off on a search to rescue the princess. She's been snatched by a horrible and evil monster. This is it's it's obviously the setting the tone is like a children's fairy tale, like a Brothers Grimm type thing, Hansel and Gretel, um, and the kind of repetition of horrible and evil monster is this kind of a weird story about this. It's on the one hand, it's a reference to like the repetitive kind of simple easy reader language of children's books. There's also some quote from a Jonathan Blow interview where he talks about how like actually this was kind of an intentional Easter egg because he was pointing at like things can be horrible and not evil, or they can be horrible or they can be evil and not horrible, right? So like an atomic weapons test or some kind of terrifying thing might just be sort of awe-inspiring and apocalyptic, but it might be morally ambiguous or even a good thing in some cases. So it was kind of a sneaky, like sounding like it's simple language, but actually with a deeper intention or something like that. But at any rate, this is our basic story. This is the kind of Tim versus the princess that most players will latch onto and understand that this is the basic plot. And then, of course, you get that crazy plot twist in the final world, World 1, which we'll get to talking about eventually. But the rest of the book, after establishing that basic Tim is searching for the princess story, the rest of this world is all about the thought experiment. It's all about the nature of what would it be like if time could be rewound, or how can we imagine that? This is establishing Tim had this previous relationship with the princess, and he doesn't remember it very well because it was so long ago. Actually, the relationship has become muddled, replaced wholesale, right? Because they've been rewinding time to replace each other's the memories of their screw-ups and things. So Tim has been on this crazy time adventure, and that's kind of muddled everything, but he remembers that he's searching for the princess. This is like the simple version of the story because all of the complexities have just become lost in the clouds. So that's kind of just more establishing some more background between Tim and the princess. And already, right, that second book, this one is like very simple. She's been taken by a horrible evil monster. I'm going to get her back. Then this little bit of nuance. Actually, it was Tim's fault. Tim made a mistake. And then here, it's like actually they have a complex relationship that goes back a long way. Here we have, it's talking about how the mistakes we make, they're irrevocable in the real world. It'd be nice to learn from the mistake and just take the learning, not take the punishment. But in the real world, true forgiveness is kind of impossible because time just rolls on and on. And it's asking, what would this be like if it was different, if we could rewind, which of course will be the mechanic of the game that we're about to see. But the last interesting thing about the clouds here is that there's two different ways in which this idea of forgiveness gets expressed, right? So in this paragraph, we have, or finally in this final paragraph, we have the full fantasy, like what if there was an alternate physics? What if there was a land of castles and magic and make-believe? Tim and the princess in the castle garden, they're hiding the mistakes from each other, tucked away between the folds of time. They're each rewinding their mistakes to keep them hidden, which is like a totally sci-fi concept. But then in this earlier book, it asks, suppose we could tell her, I didn't mean what I just said, and she would say, it's okay, I understand, life would go on as if we had never said that thing. That's not really a sci-fi concept. That's just talking about, like, what if people were perfectly good at forgiving, this is a social concept. It's something you might experience more in the real world, right? Do you hold on to the grudge, or do you let it go and really let the person turn over a new leaf? So the clouds are drawing this connection, or they have these two images, the first being like, what if the physics of the world was totally different? And the second being, in your real life experience, kind of what's an analogy or like a way when time feels like that, when it feels like we're actually rewinding time, even though, of course, in the real world, we can't do that. And that'll be a common element to each of these worlds. Like, there'll be a world about parallel universes, and there'll be like kind of like the booklet that's about what if the world was actually you could split and travel between universes, and then there's the booklet about all the times when it feels like that, like when you're making an important choice and you see the two futures ahead of you. And then finally reiterating this idea of kind of innocence and beginnings of things, tutorials. They're lounging in the castle garden. They're giving names to the colorful birds. That's like an Adam and Eve reference. They gave names to all animals. So it's like they're without sin because they're hiding from each other all their mistakes. They're just living together in a perfectly contented, perfectly happy relationship, like an Adam and Eve story, like the beginning of time before any sin or difficulty entered the world. So we're going to see what that primordial, idyllic, kind of friendly world without sin or pain looks like in World 2 of Time and Forgiveness. 3 easy pieces. The first level, which is a reference to a Feynman lecture called 6 Easy Pieces, and then he had another lecture series called 6 Not So Easy Pieces, teaching about physics and quantum mechanics and things. So we have this beautiful land, painterly style. We have the sun up there. If you look up in the corner, happy sun glowing over kind of rolling hills, little flowers and clovers, happy summer grass. Definitely a summer scene. Nice kind of Irish lullaby music going in the background. Song of the Sun. It's teaching us the controls, teaching us that we can move around on ladders. We can use the spacebar to jump, go back and forth. We can walk up curves. Has kind of a funny effect on our speed. We can fall off ladders. And then we see we got puzzle pieces. As the object of the game is collecting these pieces. This one just a simple platforming challenge. Can bounce on these little guys. These guys going back and forth. Very dedicated. I always like their attitude. But sometimes I gotta go. Of course, the bounce gives you some extra height. So, you can use that height to... use that height to get the puzzle pieces there. So, here, we've encountered the thing that is setting this game apart, right? So far it's just been a Mario platformer, setting this game apart from all the platformers that come before it. We just got hit by a Goomba and we died, fell to the bottom of the screen, but we don't respawn and start over again. We don't lose, we don't have to put another quarter in the machine. We can hold shift and rewind, and then we'll be brought right back to the moment the moment before we made the mistake. Here we go. So now we can just play it over again, do better. This one's a trickier one. So now, earlier we couldn't reach it, but even with the bounce on one Goomba now, it's too tall for us. So we got to use both of these fellas. Gives us an extra bounce. There's our first tutorial level of the game. This kind of beautiful sunny open zone, right? Click into this next one, the Cloud Bridge. But these, let's talk about the art style of this game for a moment. This is, it's like the Mario worlds of the Mushroom Kingdom. It's like Sonic's Green Hill Zone. It has this nostalgic feeling, this kind of open and friendly, but also cozy feeling. Of course, the nostalgicness itself is a little bit about rewinding, right? It's like retro gaming. It's a throwback. It's like redoing all those old Mario things. It's also, as we'll see later in the game, this is the happiest and like most untroubled of all of the worlds in the game. In the context of the wider story, World 2 almost starts to seem like a delusional fairy tale world. Like Tim is, he's like zealous. He's got the single-minded focus that's causing him to see the world as all kind of sunshine and roses. Like this is a common trope, like in the Meet the Pyro video from the Team Fortress 2 promotional materials. They have this crazy character who is like burning everything down with this flamethrower, but really in their head they're imagining that it's all just a world like this of like, sunshine and flowers and rainbows and sunny days. So eventually it'll start to seem like World 2 is like seems a little crazy, but we're not there yet. As a new player experience, right, you get into this world, it's happy and inviting. It's saying, this world is gentle, you're free to explore, and it's about that theme of the ease of forgiveness, because this platformer, unlike the the harshness of platformers like Mario where you die and then you got to restart the whole level, here if you die, you can just take it back. Got this key here. The game's just teaching us about the mechanics. Keys and locks. Clouds. You can stand on clouds. It's a nice... Get that nice puzzle reward jingle telling us that that's something we want to do. You can take clouds the other way. Of course, it takes more effort. You got to do the jumping because the clouds are going against you. It's a little bit walking up the down escalator. And now we see, this is a funny thing here, right? Picture frame. And these can all be arranged. Something like this. I don't think we have enough to... Oh, there we go. Nice. So we'll put that together. And this, the fact in Mario you're collecting stars or shines or, little moons sometimes. In Braid you collect puzzle pieces. This, of course, is important because the idea of a puzzle piece is that it fits together to create a larger picture, versus the, you're not just collecting little coins or something. You're trying to piece something together and make something larger. So this is our first hint of the ideas that that each of these little puzzles is somehow contributing to a bigger theme, that all of these things in the game might go together in a way. We'll talk more about that later, but and of course the fact that it's a painting is lines up with the whole art style of Braid as a living painting. But I often think of the different puzzles like they're each giving you a clue to how this world works. They're helping you understand the physics of this world, like little physics experiments, and then you put it together into a kind of like grand unified theory. You notice I have these two pieces that I can't get here, right? Like this, it's too high for me. As we just learned, I could jump on a Goomba to get up there. And then there just seems to be no way to get there. This is honestly one of the dumbest puzzles, definitely the dumbest puzzles in the whole game. And I think that Jonathan Blow is actually on record as saying, like, maybe I shouldn't have put these in here. These rely on this crazy mechanic where in a later, we're going to go forward and get some puzzle pieces that we don't have yet that have some of this scaffolding material like stuck onto the puzzle piece. And using that scaffolding material, we're going to be able to ferry this Goomba around, and I'm going to call them Goombas, those little monsters that we've stomped on. And then with that, we'll be able to get the boost to get the puzzle piece here and get that one up there. And that is the reason that Jonathan Blow put this super wacky one-time only mechanic in here is so that we could understand. He said that in playtests, players, some people just insisted on going in order and getting every single puzzle as they encountered it, and they would just beat their heads against the wall, rather than having the nicer experience of going forward, doing the future puzzles, and then coming back and for the ones that they were stuck on. So he put this in apparently to kind of force people to realize that there's no way they could get these puzzles and then have to go forward into the future levels and then eventually come back. But I think it's just so dumb that it probably shouldn't be in the game. You're also, if you're wondering about that flat cloud up there, you're probably not, because there's probably a bunch of Braid super fans watching this who already know what's going on. But this cloud is an infamous piece of Braid lore. Remember, this is a full spoilers video, so if you don't know all about Braid, get out now. But this cloud takes, it's slowly moving to the left. It takes like 3.5 hours, but it'll cross the entire screen, and then there's there's a bonus star that you can get on the other side there. We will talk about the stars later, if ever. But yeah, we're not going to do the stars on our first run through of the game. So we're going to go forward like Jonathan Blow wanted. We're going to ignore these puzzle pieces that we can't get. We're going to ignore this cloud that's very strange and extraneous for new players. Go into this level. Objective here being to hunt down these Goombas. So it's a dog-eat-dog world out there. Oi. Now this is also interesting because this is our first puzzle that we've gotten to. Previously, in the previous worlds, if you accidentally got chomped by a Goomba or fell into the fire spikes, then you'd have to rewind. But the game would remind you, it would say you died, your character would be sitting there in pain at the bottom of the screen, you'd have to hold shift. Here is the first time that you have to realize for yourself that you screwed up and there's no way to get the puzzle piece. So you could undo this by just giving up, going to another level, and then coming back. But if you are clever, you will realize that the reason you can't get this puzzle piece is because this gap is too big, and you need a Goomba here to bounce on in order to get that nice boost and go across. And in order to bring back that Goomba, you got to rewind. So you got to take back quite a few events. You kill a Goomba up here on this top level. You kill one down at the bottom, and then the one that you actually want on the platform. So you realize, actually, I've got to leave this first one alive, come back for it later. A little bit of strategic thinking has entered our platformer. Let's take this a little faster. Braid lets you rewind at different speeds. You see it gets grayer and also more distorted at the higher rewinding speeds. Alright. So we'll deliberately leave that guy. In order to get the boost. Now with all the Goombas taken out, there's our puzzle. Now I suppose, now that we have this bit of platform, we can start to mess around. You see how he walked onto that platform there, and you'll see how this is so ridiculous. So we can move it across. Yeah. Oh, with just one, this is going to be a little painful. Alright, I think that's good. Oh, or maybe I myself need to jump out. Okay, I don't need the Goomba over there. It's just for getting in the cloud. Yeah, I was thinking this is pretty intense for a new player experience. Alright, now we'll just take this away. He's gonna fall. There we go. Now for us to get up here. Sweet. Let's see what we can put together. Oi, oi, oi. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, there we go. We got a flat down there. Alright, so we have a... Well, we'll talk about this more when we get the full painting in. Alright, this is our final level in World 1, and I apologize, I think the, there's so many different layers in Braid. This World 2 is just introducing the kind of starting layer on which the future levels will contrast and add detail and complications. So, in this world, we're learning about rewinding, but it's otherwise a very simple level. So we'll have to, what I'm saying is basically the later episodes, they might get longer, but they'll also get more interesting, I think, because we're gonna have more to talk about in those levels versus this initial level is kind of keeping it simple. This is teaching us about levers and platforms. Now this is a great scene. So again, how early on we were just using the rewind when we died, and it was giving us a pretty normal platformer experience without too many big challenges for new players who are just starting the game. Maybe they haven't played a platformer video game before. In this world, though, or in this stage, we have this absurd challenge, or we have two absurd challenges that the game has given us, which are hopeless to make on the first try. So the first is that we've got to jump across this huge gap in order to get that puzzle piece over there, right? But the gap is obviously too large. The only way to do it is to get the boost from jumping on this Goomba. But the Goomba is timed to come out every, 5 seconds or so, and it requires very precise timing to jump on him correctly. So you can try and wait until the Goomba comes out, but you'll inevitably miss him, and then you just plunge down here to your death in this infinite pit. So you rewind, and you got to try again, and by this is another instance, just like in the hunt level, of making the player realize that the rewind can be used strategically, and you can use rewind to obtain this fine control and pull off these kind of like pixel perfect jumps. It would be unreasonable for a Mario type game in its second or third level to require players to be making these crazy pixel perfect jumps. But Braid, because it has the forgiveness of the rewind effect, it can turn up the heat on aspects of the level design. Another part of that is this infinite pit down here. See, this is the first time that we've had like the level has been going off the screen. Previously, it's been possible to die by touching the bottom of the screen because there's been spikes down here, but now we just have these Goombas falling into the abyss. So this is like apparently a big no-no rule of platformer game design is never require your players to like jump into the unknown, right? You want to look before you leap. You don't want to have some, you know, it would be considered total BS in a normal video game to have to jump off screen, right? Because there might be spikes down there, or, you know, you can't see where you're going. You might hit an obstacle and have to restart the level. But in Braid, with the rewind, it doesn't really matter whether you hit the spikes or you steer away from the spikes, because you have this long fall where you can control your trajectory, and if you don't like it, you can just rewind. So that takes us down to the bottom of this deep pit. We gotta climb back out. This is a less interesting puzzle where we just gotta get hit by some Goombas on our way up. So as they're bouncing down the path here, so we just gotta remember to hop to the side, get that puzzle, and there you go. Now we're out of that somewhat treacherous zone. And you see how the treacherousness is represented by being in this underground cavern. You can see how in the background here there's like rock, this very improbably shaped rock. But now we're back out into these sunny, forgiving fields. We've kind of triumphed over that adversity, go over this fun little bridge, and we encounter this beautiful fairy tale castle, right, from this land of magical make-believe. Like, what if everything could just be undone? You know, what if we could go back to the past? What if we'd live in this idyllic paradise like a Garden of Eden? So here we see, you know, if you look at this castle, you've got all these turrets and ramparts, but you have flowers all over it. A nice little bench, like a city park that you might sit down. A little tree in the courtyard, like that's the courtyard where Tim and the princess are giving names to all the birds. This is this kind of idyllic pastoral abode. And now we're gonna cross this racing flag here, and we'll learn some tragic news from this friendly dinosaur. I'm sorry, but the princess is in another castle. Of course, referencing the Mario video games where you would beat Bowser at the castle at the end of the level, and then, or one of the Bowser's minions, and then discover only a little toad who says, "Oh, the princess is somewhere else. You got to look somewhere else." So that's the end of our world. We're still searching for the princess. That's world 2. I think for the benefit of analysis, if you keep these paintings separate, yeah, I'll just put this together, and when it's time to talk about the stars, I'll have to reload a save or something. There we go. So here we have this beautiful painting. This is one of the many things that we just talked about, all the level design of Braid and how the idea of forgiveness and rewind is being reflected through the game design and also through the inviting, sunny, you know, summer hills. Now we have this painting. All the art in Braid was done by Dave Hellman. He's a really talented artist. He also made this awesome comic called Second Quest, and he's done some other things. This is... So what's going on here? We have this character who is Tim. Note, like, he doesn't have the red hair of Tim. His face looks different, but it's definitely still Tim. And this kind of reflects the you know, the fact that Tim is a bit of an abstract character. The princess is an abstract architect. So we're in these same summer fields. Tim is reaching up for a wine glass here. It's an empty wine glass, and he's accidentally knocked the bottle off of this this kind of, you know, summer platform. You can see the echoes of the wine glass drawn in kind of a cubist style as it's falling over, indicating the motion. So this, of course, is tied to the idea of forgiveness and undoing and redoing, right? He's knocking the wine glass over. If only you could the wine glass is going to fall, it's going to break, there's going to be broken glass everywhere. you can't put it back together again. This is related to ideas of entropy, right? You can boil the egg or mix up all the components, but it takes so much more energy to put them back to their original state. And maybe that flow of entropy is central to how we experience time. But anyway, so the wine glass is falling off the table, is going to break. Classic illustration of the one-way, irreversible nature of time. But Tim's imagining, what if you could rewind? What if you could put Humpty Dumpty back together again, and get the wine bottle back? Of course, also the fact that the wine glasses are empty. They've been drinking the wine for a while. He's going for his last sip, but that also the progress. This is another analogy of time as the candle that's burning down, time as the water in the glass, the wine in the glass that's getting consumed, the level going lower and lower as the afternoon stretches on. But of course, this isn't the most exciting thing that's going on in the scene, right? There's a second person here. He's together with the princess in the garden. They're entwined. They're experiencing this idyllic love and romance, just like Adam and Eve in the lush garden with the colorful tropical flowers. She's kind of off screen, right? Her one eye is blocked by this structure, the other by some beautiful flowing hair, and she also has a wine glass. So they're together, kind of sneaking an intimate moment in the hills and forests. I think this suggests maybe this window is kind of a window into maybe the real life story of Tim and the princess, and you can see these elements are being they're being kind of dreamt of in the imaginary fantasy thought experiment world with the Goombas and the castles and the magical princess and all this. The elements from Tim's real life are being recycled. So maybe this was a real summer day out in this idyllic fields, where he had this experience, and now he's remembering elements like the platform, and the flowers, and those are the components that are helping make up the world that we're in. So much for the painting, which is now beautifully displayed, if a bit oversized, in Tim's living room. And this is his living room, of course. Now that we've completed this world, we have access to the bedroom has lit up, and there's all these other rooms down here. This kind of storage office space. We've got a little bathroom. We've got a dining room, a kitchen, and of course an attic if we follow those stairs up to the top. The items in this room are the final thing that are exemplifying the theme of forgiveness and rewinding. You see, we have these cleaning supplies. Like here we have, Tim's got a little vacuum. We've got a little cleaning spray here for polishing the surfaces. Cleaning is like rewinding time because you're taking objects back to their previous state, right? We use something, it gets dirty, but then if we put in a little effort, we can make it like new. So the cleaning supplies are a reference to the idea of forgiveness and rewind. If you look up above where I'm jumping, you see that little red square. It's an Etch-a-Sketch where, again, you can make a drawing. If you want to make a new one, you can just shake the Etch-a-Sketch. Everything gets randomized again. Everything goes back to neutral, and then you can draw all over again. Higher still, oops, I meant to look up, entered the clouds. Higher still, we have musical instruments. So we, you have 2 speakers up there. You've got an AV receiver, classic stuff to have in a living room. You've got a guitar case up there, and that music can also be rewound. And it's one of the most intimate ways that we experience time. When we listen to music, we remember the prior notes. We anticipate the future ones. We can feel this kind of dense interleaving of ideas that are through the music, and of course in Braid, the music is playing all the time and is one of the indicators of rewinding. When you rewind, the music starts to go into reverse. So So all these elements are kind of just coming together to reinforce the basic idea of time and forgiveness that this world is named after. This has been a simple world, a friendly world. When we go into World 3, it's going to be a world of mystery, a world of confusion sometimes, of obstacles, of magic, of exceptions and things, special things. That's going to start adding to that layering process of all these different ideas and different commentaries. World 3, the plot, the plot of all these worlds, in a way, can be interpreted linearly. First World 1, then 2, then 3, but they're also all reflections of the same thing. They're like different sides of a cube or something. They're all different perspectives on the same underlying themes. So that's it for episode 2 of Untangling Braid. I hope you join me next time for some more of this beautiful and complex game and understanding everything that's going on in World 3.